In this edition of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, we catch up with a man that there's not enough hours in the day. 24 hours just doesn't cut it this time of year. Duke Tobin, Director of Player Personnel for the Cincinnati Bengals. How big of a factor is the mix of youth and experience when you're building a roster, a 53-man roster, and then an adjunct practice roster of 16? Do you overall, when you're looking at that 69 puzzle pieces to the puzzle, is that a factor at all? The youth, the experience, the mix of experience and young players are not really.
Well,
obviously, they have to be able to play first and foremost.
That's the overall thing, and every player is an independent case study, and we're trying to keep the best ones, the ones we feel strongest about, and so. At the end of the day, you can analyze all the statistics of how much everyone has played in the past or how old they are or how young they are. But ultimately, everyone's an independent case study. And it's a yes or a no at the end of the case study. And so the final, we don't get to a point where we say we want our roster to reflect a 26-year-old average age team or a 3 accrued season team or a 2 accrued season team. Those aren't the conversations. The conversations are, is this player a guy that we believe can help the Cincinnati Bengals? And is there a role for him? And then ultimately the other numbers shake out.
Yeah, it's always dangerous to say, okay, well, the peak of a guy's career is years 3 through 7, and we have to get X number, because Tom Brady just blew all that away. I mean, there's going to be exceptions to every single rule you can absolutely think of, but it used to be. I mean, back in the day, it used to be, years 3 to years 7, those are sweet spot years. Is there, on an average basis, years of a career that you say this is when a player might be most productive, or is it, as you say, totally on a case-by-case basis?
Every player is different. Injuries factor into that in a large way, but every player is different. Some are ready to play very early in their career. Some need 2 or 3 years to blossom. And that's just the way it is, and we have to make that analysis on each guy. But there is no hard and fast rule that every player plays best in year 3, because that's just not the case. So each guy's an independent case study.
Take us through the Darius Hodge story, Duke. I mean, how did you guys uncover Darius Hodge, who now has made the roster at this point in time? Now, of course, there are some injuries that factor into the edge rush position affecting his situation, but he stepped up and he made some plays out there now. I mean, he did it. He wasn't a one-hit wonder. It seemed like every single game he was doing something coming off the edge. Take us through that whole process when you unearthed Darius Hodge.
I don't know that we unearthed him. I think he was always above ground, as far as I know, but I hope he was anyway. It's just there isn't a great story other than just our scouting department working the way that it works, and grading guys appropriately, and then pursuing them after the draft based on their evaluation of them, and then convincing guys that didn't get drafted that this is a good opportunity for them, and then the coaches putting him in a position when he arrives to give him the best chance. Initially we were having him as kind of a stand-up guy, and the coaches said, nah, I think maybe his role is better to be an edge rush guy for us. We were hoping maybe he would transition to more of a stack linebacker. But when we see him, we say, hey, he's got these traits. The coaches did a great job of saying, this is the group he should be in, this is what he should be doing. And it fit. It was the right call, and he made the most of the opportunities. But really, there isn't a great unearthing story. I'm pretty sure 32 teams had a report on him, and we were able to convince them this was a good opportunity for him. And our scouts did a great job as identifying him as a guy that we would like to have.
It seems like on a regular basis, there's a college free agent that makes this football team and has an opportunity to not only make it but contribute to the success of the football team. And it seems like around the league, representatives, agents of these players understand that if their client isn't drafted, if you go to Cincinnati, you're going to get a fair shake. It doesn't matter how you got here. It's what you do once you get here kind of thing. And do you feel that when you're talking with these players and their representatives that,
Sure. They're very advanced. They want to know the role. They want to know who's on the team. They want to know the vision for the player. They want to know who he's competing with. They're trying to find the best situation. And ultimately, it's a relationship that you try to build with the players throughout the draft to get them to have a comfort level with the people they'll be working with when they get here. And so we do put a lot of effort into that. The last couple of years have been a little difficult building those relationships just because of the changes in the scouting area, through this COVID pandemic. So it's been a little more difficult, but our guys have done a good job doing that. Ultimately, they have to feel that the opportunity will come. And we have given guys opportunities. A lot of teams have. A lot of college free agents end up making rosters. But we certainly look at them and evaluate them based not on how they came here, but what they do once they get here.
So Joe Burrow went through the final process of, getting in the huddle with his new teammates and reestablishing the lines of communication with the heads, the communication gear in his helmet and all that sort of thing. Got a great, big, huge reception and played 3 snaps. Do you feel like Joe Burrow is good mentally and physically as the Minnesota Vikings come to town on the 12th? Do you feel like Joe's ready to roll?
Yeah, we feel great about Joe, and he feels great about where he is as well. So we'll see how it goes. We all believe in Joe and believe that he's the guy that can get us where we want to go.
I guess the final box to be checked is take a hit, get up, dust yourself off. Yeah, everything's good. I guess everybody is anticipating, that. Is that too much? Not too much concern, but is that overthinking everything? Or do you really?
We're going to be trying to, Dave. We're going to call plays and we're going to try to execute them the best we can.
Right.
And that's what we focus on. That's what we think about. What's the right play to call?
Right.
How can we best execute it? And it's 11 people trying to execute at the high level that they need to execute to have success. And that's what the individual, is he worried about X or Y or Z or that those things aren't on our mind. It's about putting our players in the position to succeed and having them execute at a level that's a winning level. And really that's all we're focused on.
And you have other guys that have come back from, surgery, major surgery, that are going to be big contributors. Trey Hopkins that's a hell of a story. I mean, January of this year is when he, tore the ACL. DJ Reader, is coming back. And like in baseball, you want to be strong up the middle, and you want to be strong up the middle in football too. And to have Hopkins and Reader, in the interior of the offense and defensive line, those guys returning, that's a big deal, isn't it?
It is. Those guys did a great job in their rehab. They're still both young in their careers, so they showed that they're ready to go. And it's up to them to continue to play at the high level that they played prior to the injury. And but if we didn't feel they were ready, then they wouldn't be out there playing. And they're out there playing. They feel they're ready, and we feel they're ready. And so it's not something that's on our mind. It's they're playing center and defensive tackle, and their job is to execute like the guys next to them.
So now that you're kind of winding down, like you said, though, you're always looking to tweak the 2021 roster. When do you start on the 2022 draft? Have you already started on the 2022 draft?
Oh, sure. Our guys have been out on the road, and they've come back for the cut down. They're back out on the road. They're at games this weekend. We've got a lot of reports written, both from last year on guys that came back and new reports this year. So that process is ongoing. It's been going, and it'll continue to go all the way through April.
So I guess it's a 24/7, 365 day a year job, isn't it? I mean,
it doesn't leave you, Dave. When you leave the office, the job doesn't leave you. It stays with you. And when you're laying in bed at night, it's with you. And when you get up in the morning, it's with you. It's always with you. And that's a great thing about it. It becomes what you're about, and the guys we have working certainly in the personnel department, that's what they're about. They want to be accurate on their analysis of potential players and our current players, and they work hard at it.
You are the epitome of the definition of a football lifer, because your dad, Bill Tobin, was one of the most successful roster builders in the history of the National Football League. So, I mean, you've lived and breathed it since birth, basically. I mean, you are a football lifer.
Yeah, this is pretty much my 50th year of NFL football.
50 years already.
I mean, because that's how old I am. And when I came out, it was NFL football, and that drove our family. It drove our moods during the fall, and it's what I know. I've been around NFL football my whole life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I like the challenge, and I like the competition, and it can be heartbreaking and it can be exhilarating, but yeah, it's what I know.
You mentioned the injury and the attrition at the edge rush position that you're still trying to work through in backfill. You mentioned the injury, soft tissue injury stuff, and the back end and the secondary that you're working with in terms of having good roster depth. Where do you feel like the strongest position group might be on this football team right now, or is it too early to tell?
Oh, it's too early to tell. You want to be strong in every group. You don't want to have a glaring weakness. And I see positives in each group. I see youth in some. I see veteran experience in others. But each group has its positives, and we feel like each group can be a winning group and contribute to the success of the team. Otherwise, we'd be making a lot of changes. And so the guys that we have here, we feel like our winning football players can contribute to a great season for the Cincinnati Bengals, and so it's we'll see as the quarterback goes. The team will go, and we feel great about where we are there.
The offensive line is under much scrutiny, obviously, and I think Frank Pollack is excellent. I mean, I think this guy is an unbelievable coach, and his players believe in him and they trust him. They trust the techniques that he's teaching them. You can see it already. Only one sack allowed in the preseason. It was on a weird play. Center snapped the ball a little early. Everybody's still waiting for the proper snap count, and you have no chance to pass protect. But I thought the protection, the fits in the run game, the offensive line, I think it's going to surprise some people. I think people are thinking, Mayday, and I don't necessarily think that that group operating under Frank Pollack, I think they've got some potential.
Yeah, we feel good about it. It's a good mix of veterans and young guys, and I think the group is working well together. I think it will continue to gel as the season goes on. It's a hard position to play because they're playing against some of the most dynamic athletes in the world. In the defensive linemen in the National Football League, and so there isn't a single offensive line group that won't have at times some air. It's just a very, very difficult group to play against when you're talking about the defensive ends and some of the talented defensive tackles that exist. But we feel really good about the group. We feel good about the replacement guys that can come in and develop as the year goes on, and we feel great about Frank. And so we need to carry on, the protection that we had in the preseason, and it's always a challenge. It's a challenge for 32 teams to keep their quarterback clean, and that's a challenge that our guys accept.
Final question. Appreciate you carving all the time you have carved in this busy time for you, Duke. Really do appreciate it. A lot of fans have been, talking about the Jamar Chase drop factor. Jamar Chase dropping footballs, and it's taken on a life of its own. Obviously, you studied myriads of tape, just oodles of it of Jamar Chase. Any concern on your end that Jamar Chase is in just a little blip in the screen that every player has and every player works through?
We feel great about Jamar. We get to see him every day. He's only played a handful of live snaps in the preseason, so it's there's a lot to be written there, and he's made of the right stuff, and we feel great about where he is. And so once he is able to get into a flow of a game, I think his competitive juices and his production will come. But we've got other options there too. We've got a dynamic receiving core, and I think all those guys are up to the challenge of the year.
And I guess one last comment on a guy that it seems to be the lightning rod, for the football team in general is Joe Mixon. What kind of year do you anticipate Joe Mixon to have, Duke?
If he stays healthy, he's Joe Mixon, and he's going to be productive. That's what he's all about. He's going to show up with energy and passion. He's going to drive the team to be the best it can. He's going to give everything he has to the winning effort. And, we just have to stay healthy as a team to maximize what we can be. And if he stays healthy, I fully expect him to have a great year.
And I promise this is my last question. One last question, Duke. The linebackers. You didn't address linebacker position in free agency in the draft, but you did the year before and put your bat on the ball with a bunch of good players at the linebacker position. Do you think that it could be the most improved position on the football team just by the mere fact that from year one to year two, I can attest to it. It's like, man, the light comes on in a different way. And a lot of these guys already have a lot of game reps under their belt. Do you expect that linebacker group to take off?
We'll see. I don't make predictions, but we like a lot of those. We like them all. We like the guys that we kept, and we like the guys that are on the practice squad. They're young, they're hungry, they got a lot on their plate, and I think they're up to it. And it's the reason we chose them, and it's the reason we chose to go with them. They're guys that we believe in, and we think will be very productive players for us this year.
Hi, Dave Lapham here. Have you heard about In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics? Catch new episodes from the world of sports and broadcasting. Search for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.